Welcome to the Mom as Well podcast, where we are digging deep into the gifts and the gaps of foster and adoptive parenting. I'm Tara Hutton, and I'm glad you're here. Mama's Well. Yes, she is. Well, happy Thanksgiving week. Here we are. I'm wearing my everyday grateful shirt, and we're here. I'm here at home, and we're gearing up for Thanksgiving. We're gonna have lots of family over, and I'm excited about that. I hope that you are. I hope that you are feeling it. I hope you're feeling. Sometimes Thanksgiving comes around, and we're hustling and moving around and trying to get everything ready, and we forget the reason for the season, if you will. And so I'm excited about my guest today because I think that she is the perfect person to help us move into that spirit of really, gratitude and thankfulness. And so she is an adoptive mom. She is the mom of 4 kiddos. 2 were adopted internationally. And she has a lot to say about that, but she has something really unique that I would bet none of us do. And that is she holds a gold medal in diving at the 2000 year Olympics in Sydney, Australia, and Laura Wilkinson. And I am so excited to introduce you to her. And she recently wrote a book called Life at 10 Meters, Lessons from an Olympic Champion. And I read it this past week, and I was blown away at how much I could relate to her and to the things that diving has taught her, that life has taught her, that God is teaching her, and how I connected it to parenting and to raising children who've experienced trauma and adversity. And it was so powerful for me that I cannot wait to share with you. So get ready. It's a good one. But before we go on, I never remember to say this at the beginning, but would you please like and subscribe? Leave a review. When we leave a review, it helps the podcast move up so that more people can find it. And that's the best I can understand it and explain it. It's powerful and helpful. So if you can leave a review, if you can make sure you're subscribing, the more people that are on there doing that, the more likely more people will hear it. So thank you for that in advance. And I know you're going to enjoy this. So here we go. So welcome, Laura. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to talk to you, Tara.
I am thrilled. And Laura, you have done some amazing things. And I know I probably just barely touched on the things that you've done in the intro, but I reached out to you primarily because you're an adoptive mom. And my connection with you was in the adoptive world. And then I was spending some time yesterday getting to know you even more on your website, and you've written a book.
Yes, I have. Full of surprises.
A diving book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's called Life at 10 Meters, Lessons from an Olympic Champion. So it was really cool. I've always wanted to do something like that, but just never really got around to it until I got back in the pool this time around. And it was a kind of a therapeutic process writing about these times in my life. Like one of the times I was writing a chapter on fear about a dive that I was relearning at the time. And so it was this really like kind of almost therapeutic process. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I want to kind of go back and start from the beginning with your story. But as I read your book, I couldn't get over the parallels between your diving career and then me. And I told you this in a text, and I'll just out myself right now. I had never tried out for one sport my entire life out of fear. The fear that I wouldn't make it was greater than the fear of not ever getting to play on a team. And that makes me sad for myself. Right now. But I say that because when I look at your life and when I read your book, I see how like we're so different in that way. You're so driven, But yet when I read your book, I connected so deeply with you. And I just think that was powerful.
I love that. Well, I love that we can be so different, but yet we can still be so connected. And I think that's the beauty of sharing our stories, because you never know. You make a lot of assumptions about other people that we don't know, but once you get to know them, you realize, wow, we might be a lot more alike than we thought.
Yeah. I want everyone to get to know you. So let's kind of start. And I, obviously we can't go through every chapter in the book. Tell us the name of it. It's the Life from 10 Meters.
Life at 10 meters,
Life
lessons
10
from an
meters.
Olympic champion. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're an Olympic champion. I'm talking to an Olympic champion. And not only that, but so what I understand, because, I'm not super sportsy, but I understand you were the first gold medalist in since 1960 something.
Yeah. 64.
Yeah. So you were the first American woman diver to win the gold medal in the Olympics since 1964. And that was in 2000 in Sydney, Australia, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after that, and this was really cool. I didn't know about this in your book. I got a great history in the book, but it says you went on to win 2 more big, let's see, what was the Gold Cup, the World Cup and the World Championship in 2004 and 2005. And that that's a world record, right? I was the first woman. I was the first woman to do it on platform. Yeah. I think there's been one other Chinese girl that did it a few years after me, but yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. So, okay. So let me see how I want to do this. I kind of think, how do you feel about just kind of walking through? Maybe we don't hit every chapter, but your book is kind of divided up into the titles that are almost like lessons learned. I mean, that's what it is, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't want to write an autobiography. I wanted to make it more like the things I learned along the way. I wanted people to get something out of it. And so it's kind of like different lessons I learned through my journey to the top of the podium. And
when did you start? Because you just went to Olympic trials this summer. Mm-hmm. So were you, right. When did you write this book?
I started writing it in 2017, I guess, 2016, 2017. Yeah.
Okay. And then you finished it up and released it this year.
Yeah. Yeah. It was finished for a while, and then we went back and kind of fixed it up and released it. Yeah. We were going to do it in 2020, and then the pandemic just threw everything off, of course. And so we just pushed it back a year, and but it's cool. It's it's real now,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's walk through. Let's start from the beginning, because that's where you start, really. You start in the beginning when you were in junior high. I mean, young, right? Tell us your story a little bit. You were a gymnast.
I was a gymnast. Yes. I saw Mary Lou Retton win that gold medal in 1984. And I was like, I'm going to do that. That's what I want to do. And I love gymnastics. It was so much fun. That's all I wanted to do growing up. It was a blast. But there was a point, I was about 13, 14 years old, where I realized, okay, I'm not at the level I should be at if I was going to be the next Mary Lou Retton. I'm just not. It's probably not going to happen in the sport, but that dream of going to the Olympics was still very real, and I still wanted to pursue that. So I kept tumbling because I loved the sport, but realized it wasn't going to be my sport as I tried all these different sports, like softball and tennis and track and everything. And I finally, the end of my freshman year of high school, ran into some ex-gymnast friends that had started diving. And so I went up to the pool to check it out. And I fell in love. First step on the pool deck, I fell in love. It was outdoors in this wooded environment. Music was blaring, sun was shining, people were laughing. It was gymnastics under the water. It just was this is my world. I belong here, and I absolutely loved it from day one.
Wow. Yeah. And before that, though, this was a pivotal part of your story to me. But before that, as you were venturing in all these different sports, you were dancing. You were you joined the drill team, right?
I did.
Okay.
Yep.
And so tell us, because that to me, and maybe I just picked this out, but this was powerful for me. You were on the drill team, and you were making community and connection, and you loved it. Mm-hmm. And then that's when you went to the pool, you saw then you go back to your drill team teacher, your instructor, and you tell her that. And and tell us what she says to you.
She told me at 15 that I was too old to start a new sport. And, I thought that was the weirdest thing to say to a person who just started that activity a year before. So I was kind of no, I'm pretty sure I can do this. I'm made for this. And she just kind of told me it was a bad idea. And I told her, all right, I'm done and I'm going to do this thing. So I think that's where my stubbornness maybe paid off. But the next year I did high school diving. I was also on the club team, but I did dive at the high school and was then kicked off my high school team for being a waste of space because I actually showed up to practice. So, kind of a series of unfortunate events, but, and it's hard to get that from an authority figure, from a teacher or a coach telling you you're not going to measure up or you're not good enough. And I feel like you can kind of take that one of two ways. It's either going to break you and make you feel like you're not worthy and that you just give up on a lot of things, or it's going to do what it did to me and it's going to light a fire under you and you're just going to sit in your stubbornness and prove everyone wrong. And that's what I set off to do.
Yeah. To me, she gave you both of those teachers, coaches gave you a huge gift because it was a current that ran throughout your whole story and the whole book is like adversity, challenge. It was almost like you were like, bring it on, like it makes me stronger.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've learned is it makes you better when you face those challenges and you don't give up and you find a way through. It makes you that much better because so many people give up when they are like this close, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I, early on, for some reason, I don't know if somebody told me this, if I picked it up somewhere, if this is just the way I was wired, but I never wanted to stop because I always wondered, what would I do in a couple of years? Would I look back and wonder if I could have? Or would I rather just try and fail and know that I couldn't do it? I think the not knowing was a worse alternative for me than going and just failing miserably. Like I was okay with that because I knew I could pick myself up and try something else. And that's probably because I watched my dad, and my dad was always trying new stuff. And if he didn't know how to do something, he would just figure it out. Like that's just the way he was. And I think I just picked that up simply from watching him. Like, okay, you don't know how to do it. Let's figure it out.
Yeah. I love that, Laura. And that is you really just highlighted and showed like the differences in the way you were parented and the way I was parented. And I truly believe that our kids, this is a parenting podcast, and I truly believe our children, it's so much more powerful who we are than what we tell them.
Right.
And I saw my mom afraid and fearful and that's all I'm not blaming her or anything like that, but what our kids see and who we become is a better indication of who they will become versus what we say or do. And that just so highlights that. And again, it highlights the fact that, how different you and I are in that way. And yet I've found ways I've struggled anyway, right? I found you either choose the struggle or the struggle chooses you.
Very true.
And a lot of struggles have I say they've chosen me. I think we co-collaborate, right? We just work through, and they have made me stronger. And so now it's funny that you said you're too old, and then here you are, fast forward in your 40s, attempting Olympics again. And there, I feel that in it sounds even silly to compare, but starting this podcast when I was turning 50 was a huge deal for me. And, I remember the first email I sent out announcing it, I said, I'm 49 and there's still time. And I like that. So I think I connect with you in that way, is that you're still trying to tell that lady and yourself and the world, like, you're not going to tell me I'm too young, I'm too old. There's no way.
Well, I just recently read a story about a guy who is like 88 or 90 that just got his PhD. So it is never too late. If there is a goal in your life, it is never too late to start.
Yeah. One of my all-time favorite books ever. And she's written two. It's Dr. Edith Eger. She's a Hungarian Holocaust survivor.
Oh, wow.
You'd love it. And I've read both her books. She wrote the first one when she was 92 and the second one when she's 93 or something, 91, 92. Yeah. Wow. And they're fantastic. The cover of it, it's fantastic. And so she's my hero, I think that's so cool. A beautiful, beautiful thing. So we aren't too young. We're not too old, are we?
Exactly.
Okay. So let's keep going back. Your pursuit, one of the things I just want to kind of go through, I took so many notes. I have a whole book of notes here I took on that book yesterday. It was so good.
I love it.
I just kept writing down things and I couldn't help but see the similarities. You are an adoptive mom. And you adopted from international adoption, both children, right?
Yes, China and Ethiopia.
Okay. So you know the struggles that those children face. I mean, our children have experienced extreme trauma, even if we got them at birth, right? We know, we just know that. We know their brains were forming differently and were developing differently. And I don't know. I know you are in this world because you have a community of people who are also adoptive parents, but there's a lot of struggle. And so that's, I think, what I was connecting with as I read through the book is the struggle that you face that's empowered you. The struggle I've faced and we all face, we can allow it also to empower us and to heal and to help our children heal. Let's see, I'm going to move on. I took my notes by chapters, which the next chapter we talked about, harnessing your emotions. Like you talked about that just a few minutes ago, like all that emotion about, you're not going to tell me you're not going to tell me I'm too, that's the same stuff that we're dealing with as parents of raising children from hard places is it tests us. It taps into places that I don't necessarily want to tap into in myself,
Yeah. Well, and then you start questioning yourself too. Like, is it something I did? Is it something from their past? Is it like, why are they? Because there's so few answers as to why they maybe act a certain way or behave a certain way or go through certain things. And, my two adopted kids are wildly different, like personality and the way they behave and the way they act out, like it's totally different. And so, you just start to question, like, is it you? Is it the background? Where is it coming from? But ultimately, that doesn't matter. You just have to trust God that He's going to equip you onto how to handle that kid in that moment with that circumstance. And that's a very hard thing. It's one of those where you have to be emotionally involved, but yet at the same time, you got to kind of let go and let God guide you in that moment, right?
Yeah. Can you see how? I mean, I can't even imagine. I might be getting off course, but I don't think so. I think we're staying right on course. But I keep saying we're going to walk through these chapters, but then I keep thinking of more things I want to ask you. How? And I know I can't wait to hear this, but how has that inner strength that I can't even imagine doing what you're doing, and I know you always give so much credit to your husband Eric. But how you're doing the things that you're doing. You have a podcast, The Pursuit of Gold, that I've listened to. It's very inspiring, no matter if you're an athlete or not.
Thank you.
I was inspired by the one, really, you talked about writing down your dreams and you had to tell your teammates.
Well, there's power in like writing something down, right? Like we can all have these great goals or whatever, but when you write them down, it kind of becomes a little more real and you're a little more accountable to it. And then when you tell somebody, it's really real because now somebody else knows and they're expecting something of you. So, that's an intimidating thing to do, but it's a really powerful thing if you want to accomplish something hard, to have somebody in your corner that's not just going to cheer you on, but that's going to hold you accountable to do the things you need to do to accomplish it. Because I like to say a goal isn't something that you can already do. That's just something that should be on your to-do list that you can check off. A goal should be something that you're not currently capable of doing, that you have to work and change and grow in order to reach. And so having people hold you accountable, again, helps you make it more real. Like there's been studies, and the people who write it down are far more likely, like maybe 3% of all people who have goals write it down. And of those people that write it down, so few go on to get them sometimes. So writing it down, though, is a huge force in making it real, making it tangible, and holding you up to going after it.
Yeah. How has that mentality, and that's basically what, you're on your website, it says you're a dream chaser. You're how has that mentality, that inner strength that you've developed in diving, helped you as a mom? Not only to I can imagine there's been times where you're like, what am I thinking? I can't do all of this. You know what I mean? I can't, I'm sure. So how has that helped you in your work with your kids, to keep going, to keep moving forward, and to know, I know how important parenting is to you. So how have you blended all that?
I think this is a great thing to dive into, because so many people see you on social media and think, oh, they can do it all. They've got it all together. And we so quickly forget that life is lived in between those picture perfect moments that we post. We're not going to post all the crying and screaming and, failures that we have. Nobody wants to post that. Nobody wants to see that or relive it. You only want to live the highlights, so that's all you want people to see. And, we have to remember that that's not how we can't measure ourselves against somebody else's perfection. It's because they're not actually perfect people. Right. And I remember there was a time when I had 3 kids under 3, and 2 were like 2 years old. They were potty training, and I had a newborn. And I remember breastfeeding my newborn while I'm wiping rear ends in the toilet. We spent 50% of our time in this little half bath in the hallway. And I was like, this is my life now. Like, is this forever? Like, I thought this is going to be the rest of my life. And I was like, I don't think we can do this. It was like a survival game. Like, I really did not think I was doing good parenting. I was just trying to make everybody live through the day until daddy got home and I had an extra hand, know? So there's definitely those seasons that are so much harder, and you're not sleeping, and you're, quick to anger. And again, it's like, I feel like trying to stay in touch with God, especially in those hard seasons, and just be like, please just give me the endurance today. Like, help me be patient. Help me not jump down their throats. Like, let me lead them well, even when they're little and they don't know, because I know, and I want to look back and not have all these regrets. I mean, I'm going to mess up, but like, just help me, have the power to get through this. And I think, yes, I am wired that way, but I easily get sucked into the doubt and the fear and the frustration and all of that too. But I think I catch myself, and because I've been through a lot of this, I tend to catch myself when I'm going down that road and realize that, like, this isn't good. And God, I need your help, because I'm failing today and I'm falling short, and I can't do this. And I love that, because I mean, of course we fall short. We fall short all the time, but I love when God really brings it, because we think a lot of the times, our life these days is pretty easy. We have so many conveniences and so many things are easy compared to, millennia past. Right. But when he brings us to these moments where we really realize and he just shows us how much we need him and we need to depend on him in those things. And those aren't always fun seasons. They're hard seasons, but they're beautiful, because when we have that dependency on him, there is just nothing quite as fulfilling as that, and I love that. And I remember those hard times like preciously now, because that's when I grew, I think, the most in my relationship with him at the same time.
Yeah. That leads us to chapter 4 on faith.
Look at you keeping us like just trucking along.
Yeah. Well, I wrote, you literally left, us. Okay. So back us up to the year, because I didn't write down the year. I know that you were, hold on, here we go. I didn't write this down, but you were, I think is this the chapter where you talk about leaving the college scholarship?
I think the faith might have been like was this during a meet? Was that the one during the meet?
It was it was during a meet. It was during a meet, and you asked another diver to pray for you.
Yeah. So this is fun. So one of my teammates at the University of Texas, he was actually a swimmer. His name was Josh Davis. Okay. And he had won a couple of Olympic gold medals in 96. He was a huge influence. Like, he was a 5th year when I came in as a freshman, but he brought his medals to the pool. And I just remember that's the first time I ever saw an Olympic medal. And it was like, wow, people can really go do this. you know? I'd always wanted to, but to see it again made it feel more real and like something I could actually go do. If he can go do that, I can go do that. And so he was always just somebody that I really looked up to. And I knew he was a strong Christian man. And we were at this meet a couple years later in New York City. It was called the Goodwill Games. And it was the biggest meet I'd ever been in, because it was like in front of a live audience of like 4,000 people. It was live on TV at the time. It was only like the top 8 people in the world. So it was a really big deal. And I was having a whole lot of issues with my diving at the time. We'd have something we called spotting, where you pick up visual cues in the air to know where you are. Like, we spot the water each time to know like where to kick so you don't smack. And on this arm stand dive I was doing, I was throwing my head back weird, and I was spotting the sky instead of the water. And I was getting really disoriented. I was hitting really hard on the bottom, and I was going into this meet, and my coach wasn't there. He was at another meet with the rest of our team. And so I was terrified. I just felt all out of sorts. And I had kind of been on a downhill slide in my life, just a lot of things happening. I had lost a lot of people close to me, so there was grieving going on, and all of these things kind of compiling. And I kind of felt like diving was all I had left in my life, but as long as I have diving, I'll be okay. And now it was like diving was leaving, like diving was going away, and it was now terrifying, and I hated it. And it was so scary. And I was in this moment, and I remember just kind of feeling like so scared to go into this meet. And I remember Josh was in like the hot tub or something when we were warming up, and I asked him to pray for me. And I never asked anybody to pray for me before. And I couldn't tell him why, but I was just like, will you please pray for me? I just trusted him. And he's like, okay, and later during my competition, I remember I'm getting closer to doing this dive, and I'm feeling like I really may not live through this competition. Like I thought this may be it for me. Yeah. This might be it. And as I'm doing some of my first couple of dives in the competition, I remember seeing Josh walk in, and it was just this moment. He had no reason to be there. He just obviously knew I needed something, and he came. And it was just like God saying, I hear you. I see you. I haven't left. And I remember thinking, okay, I have made a mess of my life. I've taken the reins of control, and I have just destroyed everything good. I have made such bad decisions, and this may be it for me. And I don't know what your plans are, but I know if I give my life to you that you're going to do a much better job with it. And I would rather you have it than me. And the first time of real repentance I remember having, and I barely remember doing that dive. I just remember being, and I don't remember seeing anything in the air, but I remember being under the water going, I'm still here. I'm alive. I'm okay. And I actually ended up winning this meet that I had zero business winning because I didn't think I was going to survive it. And I remember just like an old verse that came to me, that, hey, I have plans for you. I have a future for you. And it wasn't like, I'm going to give you a bunch of medals when you trust me. It was just knowing that like, when I give my life to you, Lord, like, I know you've got good plans for me, whatever they are. I know you will take care of me. Mm-hmm. And it was just this amazing moment. And my life definitely changed from that point going forward. It was very slow growth at the beginning, but that was definitely a big dividing line in my life where I started walking with God.
Yeah, I love that story. My necklace says that Jeremiah 29:11 that you just referenced. Yeah, I think I can relate again, to my struggle and so many of us out there raising kids from hard places of just, I'm in over my head. I don't know what I'm doing. There's a lot of people experiencing, and it's even hard for them to say, but regret, what have I done? What have I done? I don't know what I'm doing. Like you said, I don't know if I'm going to survive this dive. And you had what I call a wink from God. It's like this, like, I got you, girl. And everything's okay. And I think that's, can be super hard in the moment. And I love the way you expressed that. And I mean, you just asked he wasn't a random guy, but I mean, I didn't tell him anything. Yeah. That was
I mean, that's literally how at the end of the rope I felt, cause I wasn't somebody to do that. But I was just like, I need help, and that's the only person I could think to go to.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So I want to make sure that I get to these really things that, okay. There was one, this blew my mind, and I think there's a chapter. Yeah. The chapter is called visualization, but you've used it throughout a few times. And that is, tell us the story of when you first kind of tapped into that visualization concept.
So I had kind of heard about it. I'd kind of dabbled in it a little bit, in the years before, but never really much more than like, I'd heard somebody doing this visualization stuff, and I'd tried it at one meet where I hurt my wrist. I thought about doing my dives, but it really came to a head when I had left my college scholarship after 3 years, and I came home to train for the 2000 Olympic Games. And in March of that year, I was at a meet doing kind of a typical meet warm up where we do flips onto mats. And I landed back on the block of wood I was jumping off of, and I broke the three middle bones in my foot, and like the knuckles kind of your feet. One of them slid underneath, and it had calcified within a week before I got x-rays, had calcified to 2 bones. It was like standing on a rock, and it was too late to have surgery. So we casted it the way it was, because I was only 3 months out of Olympic trials at that point. So to have surgery would have put me out.
I think we got to say that one more time. The Olympic trials were this is 2000, right?
Yeah.
And the Olympic trials were 3 months away.
Yeah.
And you break your foot.
Yeah. So this was March 8th, I broke my foot, and the Olympic trials were like mid-June. So I don't even remember what the date was.
And they come around every 4 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I was under the impression you get one shot at this, like this might be it, like your only shot. And so when they told me they were going to have to re-break everything, pin it together, like surgery, you wouldn't be able to go to trials. So I was like, well, what's our other option? They're like, there's not really another option. We can like leave it the way it is. And so that bone had calcified to the bottom of my foot. So leaving the way it was like having a rock at the bottom of my foot. And so that's what we did. It's because it was our only option. And
wait, you had the surgery. You had the surgery, right? No,
I did not.
Okay.
We left the bone there and casted it the way it was, because that was our only option to be able to dive at trials. So this period of time where I'm in casts, totally different casts and boots and all those things, we did a lot of video study, and like I would watch video after video of my dives, like the best I had done them, or people who were doing the certain actions I wanted to repeat. I would study all of that stuff. When I was supposed to be in the pool training, my coach would hold my crutches and I'd like hop on my one good foot up to the 10 meter and shimmy my way out to the end. And I would go through all the actions of my dives, just standing on the end of the platform. My coach would coach me from the deck. And, you know, I would try to like really make it as real as possible, like trying to see what I would see, you know, in the air, trying to put myself in different meet scenarios, like against the competitors that I would see there and what dives they were doing. And okay, maybe she hit this dive. Now I have this, or, you know, I'm in the lead, or I'm coming from behind. Like every scenario I could think of, I'd try to put myself in. And this was like, you know, 6+ hours a day for 10 weeks. So it was kind of a long period of time. And it's like, people talk about how sports are so mental, but like nobody trains that way. And we might do some stuff on the side, but nobody trains mentally for 6+ hours a day. You know, it was kind of crazy. And for a while, like there was that thought of like, okay, how's pretending to dive going to get me to the Olympics? You know, this is kind of stupid. The swimmers in the pool next to us would make fun of me. And it was like this point where I really felt like giving up. And then all my teammates, and they were young, they were like 8 to 18 at the time. And I was like 22 coming out of college, but they were really, I think they just saw day in, day out what I was doing. And they started to believe in what I was doing, and they got behind me. And it got to a point where I would do like a pretend entry into the water, and they'd be on the other side pool going, I didn't see a drop of water, I'd give it a 10. And they were like clapping and cheering. And it probably looked totally insane to anybody watching us, but I started to feel like I was in the workout again. I started to feel like I was part of practice and I wasn't alone in this anymore. And like, well, shoot, maybe I could do this. You know, maybe I can do something. And the coolest thing happened was I got my cast off about 2.5 weeks before trials, which is like zero time. And I got my dives off and right away started doing it. It was a lot of pain, but I was able to do everything. And let me tell you, Olympic trials is really intimidating. It's almost scarier than the Olympic Games, because you have to make the Olympic team to do something really cool at the Olympics. So there's a lot of stress at the Olympic trials. But after what we went through to get there, I think that just overwhelmed all the doubts and fears that I had, because I was so excited to get the opportunity that I didn't think I was going to get. So I ended up winning the trials by like 40 points and making that Olympic team. And what it really taught me was that mental training. I mean, it was such a huge advantage, because the day I got back in the water, it was like I hadn't missed a beat, because my mind was there and it was prepared and it was ready. And when I got to the Olympic Games, all kinds of crazy stuff happened, but I was like ready for any scenario. You know, I had given myself countless pep talks and put myself in countless scenarios. So I was kind of just ready for anything. And I can tell you that if I hadn't broken my foot, I probably would have made the Olympic team. I was one of our better divers, but I know I would not have stood on top of the podium. So I feel like God allowed that to happen, because he used that time to prepare me and equip me and ready me for something that I would not otherwise have been ready for.
Yeah. Can you just go ahead and, I mean, like, I read the book, I know what happened. I've watched this play out, and most people have already anyway, but like, keep that story going, because like you were behind. Keep telling that story. Let's just stay with that. That's too exciting, even though I know what happened.
Okay. Well, so when we're in the finals at the Olympics, we do 5 dives, and I was coming into the finals a little bit behind because my semifinal rounds weren't great, and we carried over some scores back then. They don't anymore, but that was kind of the situation. So I was kind of far behind at the beginning. The first 2 rounds were good. They were solid for me, but the top 4 girls ahead of me were still pulling a little bit farther away. They were doing great. But, I was like, that's okay. Third round's coming, and like, this is my dive. It was a dive I had done for 10s at like the nationals and the Olympic trials. Like, I knew this was my dive. So I was like, I'm just going to put my headphones on. I'm going to like get into that athlete zone, get into that right mental state. But this was back before rechargeable cell phones that you could just plug into the wall if you're out of batteries. This was back in the day of like the Discman, and my AA batteries went kaput, and I had no music. And I had no extra batteries. So I'm like in the most important moment of my life, and I'm like, I have no batteries and I have no music. So I totally started to freak out. Like, this would happen to me. I would do something so dumb like this. But in the moment of freak out, I also kind of realized, all right, I don't have my headphones on when I dive at the 10 meter. Like, I can do this without music. I'm okay. I know this dive. And something came back to me that I had learned way a million years ago in like junior high or something. It was some lesson when they were talking about mustard seed faith. If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will be done. And I remember this youth pastor had passed out like this little jar of mustard seeds, and we all held one in our hand, and I had kept it in my Bible for years. I think I still had it in there. And I remember in that moment staring down at my hand and imagining that little tiny mustard seed in there. And I just kept thinking, well, I have at least that much faith. I have at least that much faith. Like, I know I'm that faithful. And I just started kind of laughing that like, I know I can do this dive. Like, I don't need music for this dive. This is my best dive. And I ended up talking myself so up for this. I was so ready. And I remember when I walked to the end of the board and I put my hands out, I just knew what was going to happen before I even did it. And it was an amazing dive. I think I got like 9s or something. It was really good. And I was happy. And my coach was like, that's great. Now calm down. You've got 2 more dives. And so I go to sit back down. But again, I don't have headphones and I don't have music to drown out what's going on around me. And I start hearing really low scores. And I kind of thought, well, did I stay in the hot tub too long? Because maybe they started the round over, because those girls after me are really good. And so I waited a minute, and then I hear low scores again. And I knew who it was. And I was like, oh my goodness, the 3rd and 4th place girl just blew their dives, like blew it hard for like 3s or something. That's so weird. Whatever. I've got to calm down. I've got another dive coming. And sure enough, the 2 Chinese divers completely mess up their dives. And I'd seen them training for like a month and they never missed. And so I was like, whoa, that's so weird. And the hardest dive that I had was coming up. And I didn't know I had jumped into the lead at that point by the smallest of margins, but I knew I must have been within striking distance because I had hit really big and they blew it. So I knew I had to be close. And so I go over to Kenny because I'm panicking because I don't have my headphones. I can't calm down. And this is the dive that it's the action I hit my foot on and broke it. It was painful because I had to stand on the ball of my foot where that like bone was protruding and I had to put all my weight into it. So it was like painful and scary. And I'd struggled with this dive since coming back. It was the one dive I really struggled with. And so I go up to Kenny and I'm like, all right, he's going to have magic words. Kenny always knows what to say. Like, I look at him and he just goes, do it for Hillary. And he walked off. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, Hillary was a teammate of mine that we lost in a car accident 3 years before. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm in the most important moment of my life and he's trying to make me cry. Like, what is he doing? And I kept looking back and he wouldn't turn around. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm here because I trust this guy and he has been with me through everything. He knows how to push my buttons. He's obviously told me this for a reason. I'm going to go there. And so I start just thinking about Hillary and thinking about just different training times we had together, funny times we had together. And this one time we went to dinner kind of popped into my head. And see, she had been a really good gymnast. She was at the 1992 Olympic trials for gymnastics and was the first alternate. Mm-hmm. And I remember she started diving the next year when I started, and that's how we became friends. And I remembered asking her one time, like, would you go to Olympic trials again, for diving? Like, would you try and make the team again? And she was like, I just don't know if I could come that close and not make it again. I don't know that I want to go through that. But if anyone on our team is going to make it, Laura, it's going to be you. Mm. And that's what I was thinking about walking up that tower. And I started to realize like this was her dream too. This wasn't just my dream and my goal. And I started thinking about all those kids who were cheering for me that like didn't give up on me, that they're probably not all going to get this chance. Mm. And I just kind of started to realize that this dream I thought was just mine was so much bigger than me. And, that God had used all these people to get me to this moment. And some people think that's like a lot of pressure, but for me, it was like this power behind me and this reason for being here, this purpose that was beyond myself. And I remember they called my name and I walked to the end and I put my arms up and I felt like I was 6 feet tall. And I just remember thinking, I'm not scared. Like, this is it. I have nothing else to hold back for. I'm throwing at the tower. Like I'm not afraid. Like I am all in. And if it goes horrible, it goes horrible, but I have to be all in because it's not for me. It's for them too.
Yeah.
And it was the best one I'd done in years. And it kept me in the lead and it was so awesome. And then Kimmy goes, that was great. Now calm down. You have one more dive,
Wow.
But it was so funny because like trying to get things together after that dive, I wasn't worried about the next dive. It was one I knew I could hit, but everything changed in those moments, and realizing that this wasn't my dream. It was for all of these people. It was like this whole group effort, and it was so much bigger than me. It just really made me realize that I was living out my dreams in that moment. And like how many people get that opportunity, It's pretty special.
Yeah. And you trusted your coach who's still your coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's so cool. And I hope everybody, it's unbelievable that you 3 months ahead of time broke your foot and then 2.5 weeks you had 2.5 weeks of actual, I think that really speaks to the power of our mind. I don't know how else you can see that. Your mind, you trained and won a gold medal in 2.5 weeks of physically doing it. Everything else was in your mind.
That was before trials, but yeah.
Yeah.
But we had a little bit of time between trials and the Olympics. Yeah.
Oh, but only I thought you said only,
it was 2.5 weeks from, getting my cast off the trials.
How long
I
between?
think it was like 2 months, 3 months. I think 2 months before we left for the games and another couple of weeks. So
still, but you won the trials by a big number.
Yeah.
So cool, Laura. That's so cool. And it speaks to the brain. It speaks to the power of our intention and the power of our thought. And I mean, can you imagine? I just imagine if we spent more time visualizing the outcomes of our daily lives. If we woke up visualizing, well,
there was a great study. There's a great study that was done. I don't know when, but they had like a control group and another group, and they were putting them through like these weight workouts, but with this one group had actually lifting weights for a certain number of time, like a certain amount of time. And this other group was not lifting any weights. They were purely visualizing lifting weights. And I think it was like a pretty intensive, like taking the same amount of time to do it. And at the end of this cycle, the people lifting the weights gained 30% strength. The people who just thought about lifting weights still gained 13% strength. So imagine if you are lifting the weights and visualizing lifting the weights. I mean, how much more ahead can you be? So it does. The mind is truly powerful. And we always say that, but what are we actually doing with that? Because you can harness that. You just have to be intentional about it.
Yeah. And you've probably heard this because you are a dream chaser, but, and I can't quote where I've read it. I wish I could, but, the actual, the dream begins in the spirit and in the mind. And it's once you set that intention, you almost can't not achieve it, and I don't remember where I read that, but I think that's powerful to think about it. I think it applies to our everyday lives. When we wake up in the morning and we dread what's ahead. And we literally start playing out, I know that's as an adoptive mom and as a mom of 5 kids. It's so easy when our kids fall into, either a behavior or a situation, or, it can be as simple as telling me they don't want to do their homework. I can play out this scenario that they're living in a homeless shelter, 10 years from now,
and I'm raising their motherhood.
Child. Yeah. And it's like, whoa.
Worst possible outcome is where we always go.
Exactly. And so what if we could harness that visualization process that got you the gold medal? Unbelievable.
Well, and I think too, it's also like an intentional perspective, because it's the way we look at things. If we just get up and we just react to everything coming at us, it's going to be the horrible situations. But if we get started with an intentional perspective, like we're going to go forward today with this kind of attitude and this kind of integrity or whatever in mind. Like I used to dread putting one of my daughters down to bed, or she woke up in the middle of the night because she would never go back to sleep. And it was like, I would be holding her, and she'd be falling asleep. So I'd go to just touch my butt to the seat. She'd wake up, and then I'm standing again. And it wasn't just like she was up. I had to stand up with her the entire night, and it was exhausting. And so I used to just dread it until one night, I don't know why it took me so long to realize, okay, I've got this time with her. I'm stuck here. So I need to be praying for her, and I need to be praying about her and about her now and her future, and just be thankful for her and all this stuff. And as I started doing that, and I started having these prayers and these thoughts of gratitude and just hope for her, I started looking forward to these middle of the night rendezvous where I'm standing up for hours on end, because I felt so close to her, even though she was trying to sleep and crying, but I was using that time more intentionally with a different focus, and it changed everything, and even though the nights were still kind of hard, they didn't feel as bad because I was looking at them totally differently and knowing that, like, in 2 years, this isn't going to be happening. Maybe I should be thankful I have this extra time to hold her, and she didn't get held that much when she was a baby. She needs to be held, and this is special for her. And I need to remember that, it's not about me, it's about her right now. And so I think, moving forward with an intentional perspective is really important.
So good. That's so good. Okay. I know you have plans, and you are like a busy, busy woman, and I could stay and go through every single one of these, and I want to so badly. But let's just kind of jump forward, because I think everybody would love to hear from you about, what happened this summer, how you moved into that space. I think you started training, this vision of going back to the Olympics. I think you told me, was that 2017? When did you start thinking about that? I mean, I know it never left your mind. But when did you make that decision? And then, I mean, doing so would mean that you were, moving into that space with 4 kids. No, well, 3.5.
Yeah.
One on the way. So tell me where you were at. You do a better job of that than me. So tell us the story of how you're moving back into the Olympics.
So I'd taken a few years off, like almost a decade, and we had kids all of a sudden. And we had 3 home with us, and we were trying to adopt from Ethiopia. And, I had brought the kids to the pool one day just to say hi to my coach and like see what the pool is. And he's like, did they ever go to preschool? Like, maybe you should just pop by one day and like get in the water and play. And I was like, yeah, like I'm putting a suit back on, But in the back of my mind, I'd always been hoping to get back in the water, because I'd seen some years, and I was like, I wonder if I could still do it. And, eventually I got brave enough to put a suit back on. And the one day a week they went to preschool, I showed up, and for like an hour, just kind of did little fall-ins and entries into the water. And it kind of felt like home, So I kept coming back one day a week for an hour, and I just loved it. It was like the me time that I needed, but I kept coming back. So things kept coming back, and I started doing more. And then I started going to the gym and seeing if I could flip a little bit. And, after a few months of this, I was doing some legitimate things. And I looked at my coach. I said, would I be crazy for trying to do this again? And he immediately said no. And so he was coaching an athlete for the Olympics that summer in 2016. And I was going to be doing some commentating for NBC that summer. So I kind of waited until the fall. And my husband said, just go all in. If you just go all in this fall, you'll know within a couple of months, like if you just don't want to do it anymore, if you can't do it anymore, or if it's totally a possibility. And sure enough, by January, I had my full list off the 10 meter again and was ready to compete. So it was kind of a quick decision, kind of not, this whole process over time, but it was not an easy road. Like I came back, and 6 months later got second at nationals, was being chosen for all these world meets. And I thought, well, this is a really cool opportunity. But then all the crap hit the fan in Ethiopia, and we didn't think we were gonna be able to bring our daughter home. So we were making multiple trips there, trying to get her case unstuck. And it was a long process. We finally brought her home. And I finally got her unattached to my hip where I could put her down, and my husband could watch her. And then when I got back in the water, we found out that I needed a 2-level cervical fusion in my neck. And so Merry Christmas to me, I had a 2-level cervical fusion for Christmas. And it took me a whole year to kind of work my way back on the 10 meter after that. And, get a couple months in, I start competing again. I'm like, wow, this could really be good. And then the pandemic hit, and we were kicked out of the pool, and the Olympics were postponed. And I'm like, okay, well, I have extra time. This could be great, but we weren't even allowed access to a platform facility until 3 months before Olympic trials this year. So it was a really hard road. I did not feel prepared for the trials, which was really frustrating for me because I always like to be fully prepared and ready to go. And I didn't feel like I had that opportunity. So I was a little actually disappointed. Not that I didn't make the Olympic team. I was just disappointed in my performance, and what I was able to do because I wasn't prepared. So it's been just a wild, frustrating journey, but I really love what God's done on my heart in the process and how he's grown me and changed me. And he's brought these other fun adventures like writing a book and starting a podcast and making a clothing line. And like, it's just been a different adventure. And my kids have been there for it with me and gotten to see all of it. And I'm hoping, like we were talking about earlier, that my actions are speaking louder than just my words.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt they are. We didn't get to talk about this, but there was one more thing you talked about in the book that I thought was really powerful. And I dropped my notes and this book is full of things, but it's not in order.
You sound like me.
I just turn a page and start writing. But there was something I just want to touch on this for a second because it all lines up, but it's that quality versus quantity. You had hurt your wrist, and I don't know where in the line. I mean, the adversity and the challenge that you have faced, like you just keep moving forward. But you had hurt your wrist, and you could only perform because obviously you have to stand like a handstand, essentially, right? So you could only do so many dives to practice, and so again, you started thinking, I'm going to focus on every little detail. So tell us that. I'm not doing a good job. Go
no, you're doing a great job. I'm impressed you remembered so much. So I had a botched wrist surgery in January of 2005. And I was coming off just missing the medals in 2004. And so I didn't want to end on that note. So I was definitely going to go through the World Championships in 2005. Wasn't sure if I was going to keep going after that. And so I had the surgery and I didn't know at the time, but it was totally botched. I was in a lot of pain. I couldn't flatten my wrist anymore. I still can't. So I had to start doing my handstands like this on my fingertips. And, but each impact off 10 meter was super painful because we hit it like 30, 35 miles an hour. So it's like hitting a brick wall. And so there were days where I could do maybe 10 dives off 10 meter. And there were days where I did one and that was it. And I couldn't do any more. So it was really it was very frustrating and very intimidating, but it was this cool time because every single dive had to be like, this might be my last one. I have to make the correction. I have to do the right action. Like there was this pressure of like, it has to be quality. I don't have room. I don't have the ability to do quantity right now. And after, a few months of this, we had the world championships that year. And I have to tell you, I'm notoriously a really bad preliminaries diver. I light it up in the finals and I love the environment of the finals.
You like the pressure. The pressure's on, girl.
Well, but I sometimes don't make it. Like I'm real close to not making it in the finals. My coach is like, okay, you got to make it in the finals to be a finals diver. So I'm notoriously coming up from behind. But at this World Championships, I had such a different experience having to do every dive. It might be my last. It has to be great. I won the preliminaries. I was like, that has never happened to me before at a big meet. And I stayed in the lead the entire time. And so it was this whole different experience knowing that wow, when you are put in this place that you don't want to be, but you're forced to do stuff in a different way, much like when I was out with my foot, this was just a different way. God just equipped me in a whole new way. And I love that. And that just has shown me again that every time we have what looks like an obstacle or a challenge or something in front of us, it's usually something that God wants to use to equip you, to make you better. So don't run away. Don't be afraid of the challenge. Know that God can use it to make you more than you are right now.
Yeah. I think it's not where I want it. I don't want to end, but it really drives home the point of how connected I felt to you when I read your book. And that's because that's really what really raising children, all my children, but raising my girls who came to us with so much adversity, early childhood adversity and struggle. And that's really what God's showing me is that it is through all of this that I'm growing you, Tara, that I'm teaching you new things and new ways of seeing yourself and seeing the world and seeing, your children. And I just think it's so powerful. And I couldn't help but think, that quality versus quantity. I think sometimes as moms, we think we just have, we've got to be on all the time, right? We've got to just nail it, and we got to do it. And it's just the way of children, but it's incessant, the questions and the needs and the wants and it's not just 3 meals a day. It's 3 meals a day. It's 3 snacks in between each
times
meal.
how many kids. Yeah.
And it's, you get in the car after school and it's a question and a story and a question and a story and and then there's all the things, right? There's all the things. And sometimes I'm just so hard on myself because I don't feel like answering another question. And what really hit me in that point when you talked about that quality versus, because I don't have to be on every single time, but if I can just get a few, you know what I mean? If I can just meet a need really well, if I can be really present a few times a day with each kid, that's so powerful.
It's huge. And those are the little moments that they'll remember.
Yeah. Because we're just humans. We're just, you are an Olympic gold medalist.
Still human.
I know you
still screw up every day.
I know you are human, but it's pretty cool that I get to sit here and talk to you. Thank you for this.
You're so sweet.
Thank you so much.
So
and before we close out, tell us what you're doing in the adoption world, because I got to be a part of it when you started it, I think 2017-ish. Are you still doing it?
Yeah, I helped co-found the Anchored in Hope retreat. So it's a retreat for foster and adoptive moms. And you can go to anchoredinhoperetreat.org and check it out.
Okay.
But yeah, that was just it's really special. It's just kind of a resource and a way for moms to connect with other moms, know that we're not going crazy. It's a safe space with people who understand you, because when you go through fostering and adopting, like, people don't always get what you're going through, and they're not always helpful. But this is a great way for resources and community, and just kind of a refresher. It's a time away from kids so that you can learn how to be a better mom and how to just, keep your sanity and walk with God through it.
Yeah. And is that going to happen this year in 2022 or?
I think the next one, I think we're doing them every 18 months now. We just had one. So yeah, we'd have to go look at the website. I'm not sure if we've even
anchoredinhope.org. Right?
Anchoredinhoperetreat.org. Yeah.
Anchored in Hope Retreat.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, is there anything you want to add before we leave? I'll make sure that we reference the Pursuit of Gold podcast,
thanks.
Your book.
Well, I have some new, thank you. And I just created a new clothing line, and I have to tell you, there's a special one for moms. It's the One Tough Mother collection. So
I like that.
There's workout shirts and regular shirts and mugs and all the fun stuff. So, and there's even stuff for little kids that say like Little Dreamer, and it's got a little diver on it. So there's teddy bears and all the things. So,
and that's at laurawilkinson.com, right?
Yep. It sure is. Everything's there. You can find everything from there. Okay. Yeah.
What a treat. Thank you. Awesome. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This was fun. This is a lot of fun.
I'm glad. I hope will you share this with your diving community, all your athlete people?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I'll be sharing it on all my socials. Yeah.
All right. Good deal. Well, tell Eric hi. You guys have a happy Thanksgiving. And
you too. Yeah, give Kyle a hug from us.
I certainly will. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks
have a great day.
You too.
Okay,
bye.
Thank you for joining us today. Man, if that doesn't help you move into the Thanksgiving week, I don't know what will. So I hope that you picked up as much as I did from Laura. I know I'm going to be focused on that quality versus quantity this week, because honestly, we got less time this week than we normally do. We're busy, we're moving, we're going from different house to house, and it can get easy to feel overwhelmed in the middle of all of that. So I'm going to focus on that. And I'm going to focus on waking up every morning with that intention, that visualization. I'm going to be going through my dives before I get on the platform. And so, because we can win a gold medal, right? I mean, if she can win a gold medal, we can certainly do this. So I hope you have a great week. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next time.
Mama's way.